bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into Game Week alongside former Georgia forward Witte and Crowder. I'm Anna Witte. This week in USL Super League, we are talking about what happened on match day 7. We're looking ahead to match day 8, and we are also joined by Brooklyn's captain, Sam Rosette. She talks about the team's early success in the league and what is going on as to why she chose to go back to New York and play. Marion, how you doing?
Anna,
what's going on this week?
Great to see you. Great to see you. We both had not like an off week from Super League, obviously, because we kept up with it. But I'm excited to talk about it with you. We didn't have a game together this weekend.
I know. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. I was out dancing pretty hard on the dance floor. One of my former Penn State soccer friends got married. So
soccer weddings are like next level.
Isn't it so fun to get back with old friends?
Yeah. Especially you don't even have to go through the whole tell me where you've been for the last 5 years. It's just right to it.
I know. They're the best friendships.
Wait, I've got to know, what was their did they have a DJ or a live band?
DJ.
Love a DJ. Was it
DJ
trap
Bill
music? Was it trap music? Was it a little mix of everything?
We got a little mix of everything. He took requests, which I'm always into. Yes. I personally had to wrap it up with Jonas Brothers because that's something we always connected on in college, which, Marion, I feel like that's not your vibe, but it's mine.
Wait, I was just about to ask you. So wait, anytime you go into, all right, what would be your go-to DJ requests? What would it be?
Oh,
don't say the Jonas Brothers.
I know. I would say DJ requests, something like Fireball, something gosh, what's his name? Why am I not thinking? Pitbull. Something Pitbull would be my request.
You're a Pitbull girly?
I am.
Oh my God.
305.
I'm obsessed with that. See, I'm more of I don't even know the name of the song, to be honest. And this is going to set my husband's probably listening to this being how dare you? I'm more of a to the window, to the wall.
Yes, I could see that. Trap music.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was probably at your wedding.
We love 100%. Well, we did have a band. We had a band at our wedding. And in fairness, my first dance song with my dad was actually Rhiannon from Fleetwood Mac, which I feel fits.
Fine,
I feel that's not. Yeah. Okay. And then the rest of it, we ended up getting a DJ towards the later part of the night. We just put on Hunter's iPod was the DJ. And yes, iPod. He still keeps his iPod.
Good for him. I respect that.
Crazy.
You never know when you need it.
We needed it at the wedding 5 years ago.
Well, you might need it to listen to our show today. We're going to dive right into the games, reviewing match day 7 in Super League. It was DC and Spokane that ended up tying 2-2. And Marion, it was DC that didn't have any goals from the run of play. Defender Madison Wolfbauer had 2 goals from the PK spot.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I think it fits with the first part of the season. Center backs just getting it done on both sides of the ball. That's been for every team now. I think we've had a defender on the score sheet. So shout out to the defense. I'll give it to you as a former attacker. Anna loves that. Penn State Nittany Lion defender. So a couple thoughts. I actually there were some changes to both teams' previous 11. I thought for DC Power. I'm still holding strong on you don't need to worry. Don't hit the panic meter yet. We'll get into a little bit of why I say that later in the show. Aquino is very good. She proved that once again. She's very athletic. She's very good. Having an elite goalkeeper, especially down the stretch as attackers get more nuance, going to be key. I think fatigue became a factor, specifically mental fatigue towards the end of the match for DC Power. Just too many lost runners in the box, too much relaxation in the box in terms of getting pressure on the ball. But I really thought Fred Briant made adjustments in the lineup that proved pretty fruitful. I mean, 4 shots against this very same Spokane team on the 22nd, 15 shots on when they met again on September 29th. So definitely made some changes. But for Spokane, the lineup change that I actually want to note is that Mackenzie Weiner moved out wide to start this match. And I actually think that she is so much better out wide for reasons we talked about last week. I think her runs just speak to a winger's position. I think she's more suited for the wide channels. I think that she is a little bit more suited to finding services as opposed to finding shot angles, which is nothing wrong with that. You have to have those types of players on your team. So I actually thought that she was very, very good out wide.
To your point, DC's goalkeeper Morgan Aquino was insane. She stood on her head, 6 massive saves that kept Spokane off the score sheet. Likely more. They probably should have seen a few more goals in the back of the net. But some changes on both sides of the ball in DC and Spokane. You look at the Brooklyn beating Lexington game. Brooklyn made 4 changes to their lineup after playing a midweek game. One of those changes being their goalkeeper. They were coming off a midweek win against Dallas. They have a midfielder in Sam Kroger, who to me has really stood out as a player who can facilitate a lot. But it's the striker and Isabel Cox, who moved into a central role against Lexington. How did you see her difference on and off the ball from playing in a wider side than being moved to that lone 9?
Yeah, so I can speak. So I actually used to do this a lot as a player. You kind of have this fit and this build of like being a natural winger, and you can play there because you're not afraid to get at people. And oftentimes for wingers, right, that's like one of the first things you look at is a willingness to go forward. And as a central striker, that's not often the first thing that's looked at is like, hey, how good is their 1v1 ability? But I always remember as a player at Georgia, having a sense of freedom when they put me in the central channel because Isabel Cox we've seen is speedy, right? She's got the pace and she can really be a vertical threat. Sometimes as a winger, it is almost so predictable, right, in terms of where you can actually go, and you have to rely a lot more on the interchange of the group around you to be able to get involved when the ball's not on your side. As that central attacker, you can really have the starting hand to that interchange. So you make that diagonal run to the corner flag, and then all of a sudden it's the winger's job. Now they're involved on the backside, right? They're getting balls into the box. I just think her movement off the ball really, I think we saw freedom in her movement off the ball as a central threat. And also what I like is she's not a true number 9, right? Mm-hmm. She's not going to, and when we say true number 9, obviously most people watching this know this, but I'm talking like she's not going to be that person that just sits back to goal and just kind of poaches in and around the 6-yard box, the 12-yard mark. She's going to be that false 9, which I think opened up a lot of space for Jess Garziano, who was electric in both of their matches. So that combination of those two, they almost sometimes act as a 2 front. I just thought that they played so well together. A big part of that was because Isabel Cox went to the central spot.
Brooklyn has so many players that already have continuity and the ability to play off each other. To your point, it's been really fun to watch. You have to give credit to Lexington. They made 2 changes after their loss to Fort Lauderdale. Their back line stayed consistent. They do have a forward in Amanda Allen who has been able to hold onto the ball a lot more in the attack to help out Lexington in the attack. However, they named midfielder Claire Winter to the roster the day before the match against Brooklyn. Marion, what impact did she have on that midfield to hold Brooklyn to just 1 goal?
She was good. I thought the midfield presence was a lot better. And let's remember Winters is a player who was signed as a national team replacement for the Orlando Pride, who was absolutely running the standings in NWSL. I mean, like a historic type of campaign for the Orlando Pride. So she knows the standard. She knows what an elite level pro squad looks like. And Orlando Pride, one of the most nuanced and creative midfield groups in the NWSL. That's where she comes from. And that's what she showed for Lexington. And I would agree with you. Allen, Mary-Kate McGuire, they continue to be a bright spot for Lexington. It's really just the nuances of the defending. You know, my note for them here is the goal was a back post run from Isabella Cox on the service, and it was 3 players. They get called ball watching, and the back post is now wide open, and she's got 7-8 seconds to bring that touchdown and hit it in the back of the net. So the pieces are starting to fall. I think that's a great sign that Lexington went out and got her Winters, and now it's just a matter of how that midfield can start to impact the defensive shape as well, and just turning on. Right. Some of those things are things that you learn at the youth level, right? Hey, mark my runner. It sounds so simple, but those are just the things that are going to have to continue to be drilled into a young Lexington side.
Yeah, Lexington's head coach, Michael Dickey, said that, hey, if some of the players on the field can't get the job done, we're going to have to go out and get some of
I
those
love it.
players. And he did it. Claire Winter certainly making a big impact against Brooklyn. So 2 matches on match day 7. That wraps up our review of what just happened in the Super League. Stay with us. We have the preview coming up right after this on SiriusXM.
Bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back into Game Week on SiriusXM. It's the middle of match day 8 in the Super League. And Carolina, a team of 2 that is still undefeated in the league right now. They played against Tampa Bay on Friday. It was a 0-0 draw. But Marion, what could have Tampa Bay done differently to find the back of the net against this Carolina side?
That's a great question. And one where if you're a Tampa Bay Sun fan, you probably watched that game in frustration. And if you were a Carolina Sun fan, you probably had moments where you were like, uh-oh, is the first loss finally coming?
Right.
For Tampa Bay, it was all about being a bit more hungry when they chose their moments. There were some moments that they exposed Carolina Sun in a way no other team for me has yet. And it was really when Carolina tried to build out of the back. I thought Tampa Bay did an excellent job of closing down passing channels. I thought their defensive organization from their front 5 was outstanding. And in that moment, you kind of have to turn on as an attacker and be like, all right, if we're going, we've got to make it count. Now, Carolina, they don't have the transitional threats as much, but if they were playing a team, let's say like Fort Lauderdale, you could have really hurt yourself not making those moments count. And then Fort Lauderdale is, back the other way with a Shania Gordon making a 50-yard streaking run into your 18-yard box. And so that for me, look, all the credit to Tampa Bay. I thought that the 3 points were earned or deserved for them. They should have gotten the 3 points despite it being a draw. But ultimately, it comes down to how you execute in the 18-yard box. And they made Carolina feel pressure, which is something to say. How can you make that pressure then turn into goals on the score sheet?
You're probably not going to see a Carolina loss to Lexington this week. However, I do think, to your point, if they continue down this standpoint where defensively it's not always together and the structure's not always there, we might see Carolina's first loss. However, they're still undefeated. Next match on the weekend is Spokane and Dallas. It's a 5 p.m. Eastern time kick on Peacock. Dallas will travel to Spokane for this one after losing to Brooklyn. It was a really uncharacteristic game for Dallas. They only had 3 shots on target against this Brooklyn side. What must Trinity do differently against Spokane to find the back of the net, especially on the road?
I'm not sure their midfield 3 is where it should be at the moment, whether that's personnel change or not. Let's remember that it is Pauline McDonald's first game as their head coach. And so, you and I mentioned it last week, despite her and Chris Petrocelli having a similar style and having a similar vision to how the game should be played and how the roster was constructed, it's still a different voice.
Right.
And it's still a new coaching technique. It's still a new tone of delivery that these players are going to sort through. And so I don't know that we'll see that same midfield lineup for Dallas Trinity. I personally would make some changes. I think they've got to have a bit more mobility in the midfield to play the kind of football that they want to play. That would be my biggest takeaway, is kind of like, let's see how Pauline McDonald adjusts now that she's actually been in game action.
That's when the moments really count, right? Is when coaches have a moment where the result doesn't go their way. And now you got to see, how do you handle that adversity in a brand new league? For Spokane, they only had 3 more home games before they finished out their fall season on the road. So these home games and these 3 points are really important for them to get it when they can. Next match is Fort Lauderdale against Brooklyn on Sunday at 7:30 Eastern time on Peacock. Fort Lauderdale United had a pretty nice rest on match day 7 after defeating Lexington 3-1. But they're going to be hosting Brooklyn in their home opener. What has been the driving factor that has allowed this trio up top of Hamid, McCain, and Gordon to just be so electric this season?
they feed off each other, right? Their energy is contagious. It feels like around each other, and I feel like I've said it ad nauseum. But one of the things that I am just so impressed with about the Fort Lauderdale Attackers across the board is just their willingness and their bravery to put their head down and say, "Try to stop me one on one." I mean, A, that's confidence, and your other attackers are going to see that, and B, that is just an absolute statement to how you feel as yourself as an individual, right? Like they feel this confidence about them that there aren't many players that can stop them one-on-one. I'm with them. I take just about every single one of them and just about every single 1v1 battle. But Brooklyn, I've said it. I've told you off air multiple times. I've said it, I think, since the beginning of this show. They've been the team to watch since their roster came out, right? I know we're not even seeing the full complement of their roster with Taylor Smith being out, but since their roster came out, you kind of had an asterisk by their name, like they could be something special, and they have not disappointed whatsoever. I think it's really interesting because Brooklyn has obviously burst onto the scene after a little bit of a delay, but Fort Lauderdale's just been steadily minding their business. You know, they've just been taking care of their matches. They're doing so in a really entertaining brand of football. So why, if you're the viewer, why would you want to watch this? Well, this is like a third party objective personnel. Like this is the game for you.
Right.
For the viewer, like this could be box to box. It's going to be end to end. You're arguably going to see two of the best transitional attacks in the league go toe to toe with each other. So just from a viewership perspective, Anna, I feel like you would, if you've been tuning into Super League matches, I feel like you'd be doing yourself a disservice not to tune into something that's going to be so action packed. We're going to see a ton of individual creativity on display. And I really think that it's going to be a matter of whose biggest player can make the biggest play, less about team aspects and more about just the individual battle.
Fort Lauderdale is currently in that third spot. So if they do get the result over Brooklyn, they will bump up into the second spot in the table as well.
We've got to point out, too, you just alluded to it when you were introducing this game. Fort Lauderdale, 14 days rest by the time they play.
Right.
Brooklyn will be on their third match in 11 days.
It's a team who's well rested and a team who's got maybe some adversity to face. And we get to speak with Brooklyn's captain, Sam Rosette, later in the show. So we'll definitely talk to her about just the adjustment and some of these newness factors that this Brooklyn side is dealing with. But it's all been positive so far and certainly one to watch this weekend. Lastly, we have DC against Tampa Bay. It is tonight at 6:30 Eastern on Peacock. DC, a team that didn't have any run of play goals against Spokane this past week. They moved into a 3-back. They do have a striker in Jorian Balcom, who's been really effective by herself up top, creating opportunities. However, for this DC side, what must they get right tonight before they hit the road and play Brooklyn the following week?
Everything. I mean, to put it simply, everything. I wanted to highlight this match for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm going to go to Tampa because it's going to lead into why this is so important for DC. We said it earlier in our segment, all credit to Tampa for how they played against Carolina. And I thought they deserved the 3 points. But I don't have this match highlighted because of them, although we're seeing really good things on the field. I have this highlighted because it's a must-win for DC to get right in every single aspect. They very much need this win for a few reasons. A, lots of teams right now are rocking with a singular win. So at the moment, I'm looking at the standings. DC does have a game over everyone, 6 matches played compared to 4 other teams at 5 matches played, 3 other teams at 4 matches played. So you win this, DC, and you're right back in the middle of the standings.
Right.
But B, we just talked about it. Tampa is playing so well at the moment. They're continuously improving week in, week out. A win would be a massive surge in confidence over that locker room that is going to be feeling heavy, right? Despite not necessarily losing all of their matches, they're just always right there. And sometimes that's arguably the more frustrating place to be as opposed to just being completely off the mark. And then C, you win against Tampa. You've not only gotten confidence, you've gotten yourself back into the standing mixture, but now you're also setting yourself up for a less pressured type of performance versus a red hot Brooklyn side that you're going to have to go to Comiso Stadium in 2 weeks. So the win tonight at home for DC is crucial.
Audi Field better be rocking. DC Power, they need it. They need the
They
fans
need you.
behind them. They need you. Be there or be square at 6:30 Eastern time. And obviously the opponent in Tampa Bay, who they haven't scored a goal in their last 2 matches. They are really anchored by their back line and their goalkeeper and Ashley Orcus. But they're 1-3-1. A proven midfielder in Jordan Listro is what they do have in the midfield. But how can they make her be more effective for their attack this time around? The defense is figured out.
I agree. And so much of what I saw them do well against Carolina started with them collecting the second phase.
Yeah.
So the second balls, the third balls, picking that up right in front of the opposition's back line. That was really where I saw a lot of their attack actually start from. So for Jordan Listro, I think that area is going to be key for her. Winning that area is going to be key for her, because we all know she's so composed on the ball. She's a player that can absolutely collect those second balls and then distribute at will, right? She's got that capability. Sometimes it's just a matter of positioning. So stay a little bit more central, be dedicated to actually winning that second phase and then go from there. The other part to their attack is, again, like we talked about in our earlier segment, a lot of their opportunities right now are coming from their defensive structure and their willingness to press teams' back line. If you're going to do that, absolutely fine with it. Love it, indeed. Make the opportunities count. Right. So if you're not going to be committed to necessarily creating a ton of chances on your own, and you're more going to be about capitalizing on team's mistake, well, then do just that.
Right.
Capitalize.
Right. This will be a fun one tonight. It's Tampa Bay against DC at 6:30 to kick off the action on match week 8. We are game week on SiriusXM. Make sure to stay with us. Right after this break, we have Brooklyn's captain, Sam Rosette.
Bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back into Game Week on SiriusXM. Alongside Marion Crowder, I'm Anna Witte. And today we are joined by Brooklyn's captain, Sam Rosette. Sam, thanks so much for joining us. Your team has been so fun to watch. And I can speak for Marion when I say this. We would describe your team as just a bunch of ballers and winners to start the season. But we don't know your team off the field. So how would you describe your team off the field?
Well, also as ballers and winners. Also just like really sweet, kind people. Like I've had such an amazing time, like getting to know my teammates and like gelling on and off the pitch. Like I really couldn't have asked for a better team. So I'm really, really lucky to be with them.
But before we get into one of the scenarios I'm curious about, just in terms of like external factors and how you guys have been performing, I want to piggyback off Anna's question. I've been seeing, first of all, social media team doing some really good stuff, but I feel like, and we talked about this, you have a bunch of people from New York State. You're the only one from the actual city, but you have a ton of players from all over the country. You have a lot of players that have played internationally. Has there been anything that has surprised them the most about moving to the city and like playing in the city?
I mean, there's so many things surprising about New York City. I think like the metro system has been like shocking to people. Like people have been loving the performances on the subway. Like every day we get a video like into the group Snap or like into our group chat of like people performing on the subways, which is like so awesome. And for me, like I'm used to that, like growing up here, like obviously I love
You're like, why are you sending me this?
but like for them, they're like so hyped about it, which I love, take in all the New York you can get.
It's like TikTok in the group chat. I feel like I see it on TikTok down in North Carolina, and you just get it in the group chat. I love that.
Exactly.
Want to dig a little bit deeper because you are from the Bronx, which is just north of the Upper East Side. I think I got that one right. Looking at a map. What is your favorite?
Wait, are you looking at the map right now, Anna?
No, I did my research right before this. I promise. But what is your favorite bagel order, and where is the best place in the city to get one?
Ooh, that's so easy. My bagel order every time is a bacon, egg, and cheese on an everything bagel, salt, pepper, ketchup, from Riverdale Bagels, which is the bagel shop in my neighborhood that I grew up going to. Big shout out.
Wait, but you're living with the team now in Queens. Your
Correct.
parents, you said, still live in the Bronx. How far does it take you, or how long does it take you to get home?
Well, it depends the time of day because New York traffic is crazy.
So,
But
like, do you get to get your favorite bagel often? Is the question.
once in a while, yeah, like once or twice a week, like every couple weeks or so, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
I
make
have a. I feel like I would be one of your teammates that are just like shocked by everything. To Anna's point, I swear we'll get into the actual soccer questions in a minute, but I'm just so interested because you guys are our only team in the city. Like it's so cool. It does present some different challenges for sure, like in terms of like having to prepare for maybe 30 minutes to an hour of traffic. Cool. But it's also just like I feel like so opportunistic and such a cool way to experience so much of the world just staying in the States. Are you a coffee drinker or a matcha drinker?
huge, huge. Yes.
Both or just one? Coffee?
Both. Both.
Okay. I'm coffee. I'm coffee through and through. So I've got to know, similar to Anna's question, what would be like your go-to coffee order? Two parts though. What would be your go-to coffee order? Normal, regular. What's your go-to coffee order on game day if it
Mm.
changes?
Those two things don't change because
Okay.
prices in New York are really crazy. And one thing I learned and loved from playing abroad was I like really got into drinking espresso, and espressos are the cheapest thing on the menu. So now I just order a double espresso every time I go to a coffee shop, and you really can't miss. So
Ooh, wow. You're a heavy hitter. Like I don't think I'd be able to survive the day on 2 shots of espresso. So respect. But you
thank
did
you.
mention playing overseas, which I know you did spend a lot of time overseas before coming back to the States. What now that you've had 4 games of Super League under your belt, how would you describe the difference between the Super League and your experience overseas?
I would say like just Americans like soccer style influence. It's much more physical, much more like athleticism based as well here. But I do think that there is a strong like European influence on the Super League, which I think has a lot to do with so many players coming back from playing abroad. Like for us, we're playing a much more possession based style. I think a lot of teams are trying to play a possession based style, which I think is something really special about this league and really exciting for me. So
So I've got to get into it, and I want to be really precise about how I ask this because I feel like if I ask it or if I don't preface a few things, it's going to get misconstrued by whoever's listening. You and I have had conversations about this, so like we know what's going on, but sometimes to the naked eye, like it doesn't seem that way. So I want to take my time to get this one out. You guys had been kept in the loop. Let's get this first and foremost about who your coach was going to be. Right there wasn't. You knew it, but they weren't there. Okay. Jess Silva wasn't there at the time. You guys are signing. You're dealing with. You're coming into training camp, and the first 4 matches that you guys have played was with Kristen Sample. So
first two, I think, just the
first
first
two,
two.
first two, first two. So we had some external factors, right? And I want to be. This is what I want to preface. There is absolutely nothing wrong for a club to take their time to get the right person into a role such as a head coach, general manager, whatever it is. There is absolutely nothing wrong or abnormal about making sure that you are built for a foundation of principles and for a long-term future as opposed to just like who is available, who can we stick in now. So I want to get that out first and foremost to the viewers. Nothing wrong with the way that Brooklyn did this. But obviously, that's going to have some external factors that you guys as players just have to deal with, right? The training camp is being led by someone else. The first 2 matches that you play are kind of a different tone of voice, regardless of if they see the pitch the same way. And you would think that with all those kind of external factors that you guys were dealing with at the beginning of the season, perhaps we'd see an impact on your playing ability. We didn't. And I want you to take me inside the locker room and maybe like the mentality of the locker room for how you were able to really just put all that aside. Again, not a negative external factor, but a present one. How you were able to put all that aside and just perform the way that you guys have been.
I think it really came down to like us like hanging on to each other. We just found a way to like hang on one another and push one another and be resilient together in hard moments, figure things out and problem solve like as a group was something that we got really, really good at throughout preseason. And so I think that that showed like in those first 4 matches. I think that that's been showing. And I think that we've gained a lot of resilience in this time and it's brought us closer as a group. So It's been
Resilience
cool to be
is
part of.
Yeah, I mean, resilience is a great word to describe your group and the fact that you guys really came together because it shows on the field. You play together. It seems like all three lines always stay consistently connected no matter what point of the game you're in. What relationships did you have with your fellow teammates before coming to Brooklyn? Did you know anybody or play with any before?
I didn't know many. Hope Breslin and I had played on a summer league team together about 2-3 years prior to that. And we actually like loved playing together. So when we both saw the
Cool.
we were like so pumped. Still love playing with her, by the way. She's awesome. So, but other than that, I hadn't really played with anyone else, I don't think. I like knew of some girls, but didn't have like a real relationship with anybody else.
It's so cool to Anna's point, just how quickly your chemistry on the field. I think we see it throughout the 90 minutes of play. Obviously, we mentioned your social media team. I think they do a great job of capturing some of your personalities that we all often don't get to see. And to do that so quickly, again, just kind of like putting everything aside and just being like, hey, we're here to build something and we have each other. And that's kind of all that matters. It's been really impressive. Obviously, I do want to talk about, Nana, if this was maybe where you were going there, regardless of if you see the field the same way. I think about Dallas, right, when they had an acting head coach in Chris Petroselli, and now Pauline is there. Very similar with you guys. I'm sure that they see the game the exact same way, but it's still a different voice that you're getting used to. So what's it been like kind of swapping to hear a new voice in charge for you guys as Jess Silva has stepped up?
I think that like all of our staff has really empowered us to be the leaders on the pitch, and to be problem solvers, and again like resilient in that. So I think that we've always had principles of play that we wanted to bring forward and like show in our game, and those don't change. So I think that it's not as, yes, like there's always that factor of like hearing a new voice or a more prevalent voice, but at the end of the day, like it's us on the pitch, and it's us doing the playing.
Absolutely.
So I think that our staff has done a really good job of empowering us to take control of that style and what we do on the pitch.
This weekend, your team's traveling to Fort Lauderdale for Fort Lauderdale's home opener, which is going to be massive. Fort Lauderdale's scored 7 goals this season. They have a front three that is really strong and really talented. You're on the back line leading this Brooklyn side. How do you contain and control some of their attack this weekend on the road?
I think we just stay organized. We've been working a lot on our communication, and I think that that's shown. I think we've only given up 1 goal so far in our first 4 games. And so I think that we just continue working on that chemistry and communication on the back line and hold it down.
Who's coming up with the sellies? That's what I want to know. Is it you? Are you in charge of the celebrations?
Oh, that is not me. That is not me. It is a team effort, but I will say, like, Jess Garziano has been taking the lead. She is our creative mastermind behind that. So
wait, can we expect a change every week? Is it going to be, obviously it was the bowling pins last time
Will
out.
it be Florida? Will there be like a Florida flavor this weekend, maybe?
You guys got to tune in to find out. I don't know. To be fair,
you guys to give the people breaking news.
If you guys saw between the 2 games, there was a change. There was bowling in the first game, and then in the second game, it was like a little photography show. So maybe there will be something different in this next one. Who knows? You just got to watch. And
I love it. Keep us on our toes.
I've got to know. Because obviously when Anna and I were doing our research, I told you our geographical research on Brooklyn, where it's located, all the things. Obviously Brooklyn is such like a big outdoor community. There's a ton of running clubs, right? There's so many cool parks and stuff. I feel like things change when we go to a place, right, when we're younger, and then we come back as adults and we have kind of this newfound sense of appreciation. What's been your favorite part about like coming back to and playing in Brooklyn?
I've loved like finding my own independence and like life in New York City. I've never lived here like as an adult. So I think that that's been like really cool to just find that. And like Brooklyn, like you said, is a completely different community than the Bronx where I grew up. And so I've just been enjoying exploring and, going to new parks and coffee shops and restaurants and thrifting. Our team loves to thrift.
Yes.
You'll see them in our game day fits, by the way.
Yes. Well, we'll have to get you back on the show, Sam, and ask you about the thrifting because Marion and I are both fashion girls and want to hear.
But if you can't tell.
We have a whole list.
Well, Marion's clearly.
thrift spots, so don't you worry. We got you.
Oh, send it to us. When we make our way up to Brooklyn, we will be hitting up those spots for sure.
Yeah, we can't wait to get up there with you guys for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Sam. It was so great to get to know you, and best of luck this weekend against Fort Lauderdale.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
This is Game Week on SiriusXM. Thanks so much for joining us. You can catch all of Match Day 8 action on Peacock, and you can catch us every single Wednesday on the SiriusXM app. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.